Hello and good morning. This is my project presentation about the topic on nuclear plants powered by thorium. My name is Ivan Cedric, and first I'm going to explain the problems and variables. The energetic crisis is among the most common problems faced around the world. Current scientists, engineers, and governments are looking for a new solution to address this problem. I looked up new sources of renewable energy like nuclear plants, as well as hydroelectric plants and that type of stuff, eolic plants, and I ended finding out that nuclear plants nowadays are one of the most efficient alternative energies, since they changed the way they operate from uranium into thorium, which is a better element for getting energy. And in this experiment I'm going to explain and prove why. The independent variable is the type of energy being evaluated, which in this case is nuclear energy. The dependent variable is the amount of waste produced, danger and price of development, in this case of operating a nuclear plant, and the control variables are the research papers used as source of information. Since obviously I don't have access to a nuclear plant, I am basing most of my hypotheses and experiments from research papers from people that do have access to nuclear plants. The justification. Some of the advantages that this new system brings are that thorium, contrary to uranium, as I already said, doesn't produce deadly gases that uranium often releases into the atmosphere, therefore making the production of nuclear plants cheaper, since a specialized ventilation system is not needed in the plant. Also, thorium is a more stable element, and it produces less waste. It's also more abundant on Earth, and uranium needs to be purified through a chemical process to get an exact nomenclature of uranium, and thorium can be used by itself without needing to cleanse it or cleaning it, and it's also a more stable element. So a lot of the danger that governments face when placing up a nuclear plant on a city has been reduced to, almost zero. Research question and hypothesis. My research question is, why is nuclear energy the most viable approach to solving the energy crisis? And my hypothesis is nuclear energy, when compared the criteria that will be mentioned further in the research, is the most viable source of energy for the future. As I already mentioned in my past slides in the variables, the criteria that we are going to be focusing on is the price, the amount of waste produced, and the safety that a nuclear plant can get. My theoretical framework is, this is a small portion of a lot of the research papers that I read, and in this fragment of the paper we can read how thorium-based plants are being by the agency have been approved as a more safe option when it comes down to alternative energies, and it explains how, for example, it's better for developing countries. The materials, methods, and experimental design. In order to do this experiment, I was required to read a certain number of papers related to my topic. The first half showing the data collected from the thorium-based nuclear plants, and the second half presenting data from uranium-based nuclear plants, in order to compare and spread information about how it has changed and how it's become a better alternative regarding green energies, if you can call it that. The research lasted from 1 to 2 days, just by reading, and with the help of an incorporated Google filter, I was able to compare data that was measured exactly in the same way. It has been suggested that based on its size and design, it may be feasible to produce 100 megawatt thorium MRS, which is an energy term, factories around $200 million a piece, similar to the way Boeing produces large aircraft in factories, which would come down at 2,000 per watt, lower than the capital cost of coal power plants. So in this example, we can compare the prices and see how it's more efficient to use nuclear energy instead of coal power plants. Data collection, stats, and analysis. Most papers agree with the variables that I used and prove that there's a huge difference in the fields of security, affordability, and pollution when comparing nuclear plants that use uranium and nuclear plants that are thorium based. Other factors relevant to the cost profile are that thorium can be used without expensive emergency coolant injection systems. And they also lower fuel costs of enriched uranium, which is the uranium that I talked about at the beginning of my presentation. And there is no need for fuel elements fabrication, and no periodic shutdowns need to be used to prevent a catastrophe happening in the nuclear plant. In conclusion, the results expected were that in the presented studies and experiments that I read, most of them agreed with my premise that nuclear reactors are today one of the most reliable, safe, efficient, and economic type of alternative energy. And the implications of result in future work are that when people read this type of research papers, they can feel a little bit more informed about which is the best alternative energy nowadays, and can make an informed decision. And I mean, in my opinion, should incline more into using nuclear plants, since they pollute even less than, for example, other types of green energies, such as hydraulic energy, eolic energy, and solar panels, for example. And so yeah, in conclusion, the papers that I read agree with my premise, with my hypothesis, and through the reading and comparison of the research papers, my hypothesis was proven correct. Thank you.